After the announcement of the start of the Second World War, Ireland chose neutrality on the assumption it might keep us safe and help us to survive as a nation. So you would have thought that neutrality would keep us from needing a defence against any fighting. But an old block of concrete hidden away close to the Poulaphouca Dam shows that this was far from the case. Ireland was seriously worried about invasion.
The entire Defence Forces plan was to stop the enemy as quickly as possible and if at all possible. Because we know the Defence Forces were very underarmed during the war, and the plan was really Ireland could only hope to fight against an invader for 24 hours and then we'd call in help. And the plans show that clearly we had one enemy in mind. It was Germany. The British were seen as, if not our allies, at least people that we'd have to do business with in this scenario. And the fear was the Germans would not only arrive in Dublin by air en masse, but they would arrive at strategic locations around the country. Poulaphouca Power Station being one, Ardnacrusha Power Station being another, major rail junctions, major electricity stations, and the Defence Forces put static troops in those strategic locations to defend them, thus building pillboxes.
The outbreak of the war coincided with the construction of the dam and the ESB generating plant, the second biggest civil engineering project in the history of the new Irish state after Ardnacrusha down on the River Shannon. And of course, as that construction was underway 1941-42 in the early years of the war, there was a fear that in the event of Ireland being invaded, the power plant could be attacked. So the Irish Army built a number of pillboxes in the countryside here, straddling the Kildare-Wicklow boundaries to protect the approaches to the dam. And here is one of those pillboxes, which is overlooking Nimmo's dry bridge on the road from the Baltinglass direction to Poulaphouca and onwards to Blessington.
German invading forces arriving by air would be parachutists, and the anticipation of Defence Forces commanders was that the parachutists, the Luftwaffe, would fly them in and they would land at various locations around Dublin and at various strategic areas. And one of the things about German parachutists was they parachuted separately to their weapons. The weapons came down in canisters, they came down by themselves. So you had a couple of minutes while they reassembled that you could get them. And that was the idea of building pillboxes.
The pillboxes were fairly crude constructions, about 8 feet square, with walls approaching 2 feet in thickness of mass concrete. This, in a way, was Ireland's little slice, you could say, of the Maginot Line and similar defence works built on continental Europe. And there are three splayed windows where your rifle or light machine gun could be mounted to hold off an approaching enemy. It was cleverly sited within the landscape to achieve maximum camouflage. Overall in Ireland, according to the report of the Chief of Staff in 1941, approximately 270 pillboxes had been at at key locations around the country in that period, 1940-1941.
I think the pillboxes should be preserved. I think they're a really important source for local history and for Ireland's 20th century history. We don't realise this now because we're so close to them, because of that kind of brutalist structure. But if you look at the pillboxes as part of Irish defence plans, these are what we made ourselves, coming up with our own ideas about how we defend our country with very little resources. Who was in it? What sort of weapon did they have there? Where did that weapon come from? Who were the men who were there? Who were their families? Were they local? What did their wives, children do? What part do they have in local society? So the pillbox can in some way act as a nexus for further research. There's so many questions when I see a structure like that I think about, why, starting from why is it there, broadening out into the wider community. So to knock something like that, to destroy it, would be an act of historical vandalism, I think. They really are important for understanding a really difficult period in 20th century Irish history.